Day 2 of the move. I am not enjoying these early starts. Oh, but you get yourself tangled up, matey. Oh, he still got himself tangled. Yeah, anyway, day 2 of the move. It's going all right. I'm not enjoying these early starts. There we go, well done, Albie. Problem is, movable people are coming at 8, so I've been up at 6 o'clock, which seems too early. And the problem with it is the village cafe isn't open, so I can't get my coffee. Don't worry, I'll be properly awake in a minute. It takes a little while for the caffeine to get into my system, and honestly, I am a 100% caffeine powered beast, me. Good boy. Here you go, Albie. Good doggy. Now, today, as you can probably guess from the title, depending on what title I decide to choose, I'm talking about transhumanism. It is to do with trying to improve humanity through technology. So that means things like nanotech, genetics, you know, that plays a part, artificial intelligence. And I'm a strong believer in trying to help humanity evolve to be the best that it can be, and to make progress in the universe. I don't think the point of life is to just sit where we are, you know, without making any forward progress. If that was the point of it all, then we should have just stayed in the caves, you know, with little to no understanding of anything. I'm sure they were quite happy back then, some of the time, but no, I think progress, well worth it. And specifically, my belief is that the ultimate future of humanity is in, you know, maybe not fully leaving behind biological bodies, but I don't really think that it's the biological body that makes us human. I think it's the mind. And I think that as we get to the bottom of what you know, artificial intelligence can and can't do, I think hopefully we will wrap our heads around how our minds work and how consciousness works, and, you know, hopefully work out how to transfer and copy consciousness and do all sorts of things like that, because it's a whole new universe out there once you can do these things. You can explore, you can visit other stars, you can found other civilizations and investigate and study things, you know, and gain an understanding of the universe that is completely impossible if you are just going to basically be a large primate, you know, that's overrun a planet to the point where the planet can't cope properly anymore. It's I think it could literally be the solution to everything. But yeah, so transhumanism is it's an interesting field of research, I suppose. It's all a bit sort of pie in the sky at the moment, but it's amazing how quickly these things can change once the sort of barriers start to come down. And the principal barrier in this case is that we don't know how minds work. But we're getting there, I think, slowly but surely. What am I going to have for lunch? Oh, I hope they've got some nice sandwich. Nice sandwich and a banana milkshake and a coffee, an iced coffee. That's what I need. Whew, it's a hot day today, actually. I should try and go for a run later as well, but I probably won't get time. So this is the second day of my mum moving out. I've also got to do some other bits. I've got to pick up these children and drive them to their mother. So that's a job for later. Anyway. What's prompted me to want to talk about transhumanism today, and specifically my own ideas about it, is I watched a movie. It was suggested by Google a little while ago, a movie called Amelia 2.0 or The Summerland Project. I think it's one of those movies that's got 2 different titles depending on where you're watching it, and it's about a guy who loses his wife. It was, spoiler alert, by the way, sorry, I want to talk about the movie, so I've got to talk about it. I'll try not to give too many details, but fundamentally he loses his wife to a, pure chance, an aneurysm, and a company says that they can, try out this new procedure to copy her mind and put it into a totally indistinguishable artificial robot body, that sort of thing. Sounds fairly straightforward. I mean, what I liked about it was that it did tackle the question of, is that really the same person or not? And there are some things I liked about the way they did that, but fundamentally what I didn't like about the movie was that I don't think it really sort of answered any questions at all, or tried to answer any questions, even from a fictional standpoint. Instead, it was more a case of posing the question and then leaving it open-ended, and I don't like open-ended stuff. And also, I like movies with happy endings. If you want it, by the way, I'm not saying that people should go watch this movie. I actually don't think it was a particularly good movie. It was okay, but not particularly good. Another movie that I've watched, which I like quite a lot, is the Keanu Reeves movie Replicas, which is also an awful movie, actually, while we're on the subject. But I prefer this one because it makes one thing... I mean, Amelia 2.0 does also make this clear, but it's more clear with Replicas, in that, it's, again, somebody loses a bunch of their family members, and this time they're copying their minds into cloned bodies. And the question remains, are they the same person or not? What's interesting is in both these movies, the people who have been copied, quote unquote, they don't have any question in their head as to whether they are the same person or not. But I think that it rings true to me that if you copied a mind, it would believe itself to be the original person. And I think this is where there's a realization that will only really come for the wider population from actually having it be something that we can do. And that is the truth behind that, and the artificiality behind our singular experience of the universe. We're very given to thinking that we're singular, unique people, and all that really matters is ourselves, although religion and society often says that we should care about others equally, but it doesn't really do a very good job of explaining why. It's sort of, religions tend to dangle a carrot, you'll go to heaven, etc., etc., but you have to be a good person first. But why? So just because it's in your own best interest, that's why you're being good to other people. It's not. You're not really answering the question of why you should. You're just answering it with more selfishness and hoping that people, don't notice that fact. Yeah, I mean, I find the whole subject very fascinating. I don't think that we're anything like as singular and unique as we believe ourselves to be. I think actually having multiple copies of ourselves is an entirely possible thing. And although we might not be aware of the other copy, it's still us, really. The problem is it's very, very difficult to explain. It's a little bit like trying to explain quantum mechanics when you live in a macro mechanical world, in the world that we live in, where everything is, stable and certain. And in quantum mechanics, everything is the opposite. It's unstable and uncertain and chaotic. And yet somehow out of that comes certainty and structure. It's amazing that that's how the universe works. But I believe it actually works that way with minds as well, which is, going to be fascinating. It's going to be fascinating. There are some blanks need filling in though. Yeah, with the Replicas movie, it is definitely quite striking the way, even the sort of main antagonist, the villain, if you like, of the movie, once it happens to him, he doesn't seem to have any particular qualms about it anymore. And he's like, okay, yeah, this works. I'm me. Let's sell it. Which, I mean, obviously it would be a hugely popular thing, because I'm not saying people would, when they were younger, be like, yes, I want to be copied into a new body, but almost everyone at the point of death is going to be like, you know what, let's give that a shout, let's give that a go. Not everyone, of course, there will be plenty that won't, but once a few have, and are just busy getting on with their lives and everything's perfectly fine and normal, I mean, you're going to see those numbers, go up and up and up until basically everyone, exists like that. I mean, there are some interesting questions. I mean, on paper, it would look like that would make you immortal if you could copy your mind into a new body. In practice, we don't know enough about how minds work. They might not actually be capable of expanding infinitely. You might actually reach the physical limits of being able to communicate from one side of the structure to the other effectively. In other words, it'll grow to a bit like a tree, actually very much like a tree. You have a tree, you plant your acorn, let's say, it grows into a massive great tree, all good. And the tree just keeps getting slowly bigger and bigger and bigger, but eventually the sheer size and structure of the thing pulls it down and it becomes unable to support its own weight, unable to function the way it needs to in order to remain alive, and it dies. And I don't have the answer to that question. Nobody does, because we don't know how minds work. And this is why it's such a pivotal question to get an answer on. And, with microbiology and genetics being, the way they are, and how they're advancing, I do think there's a reasonable chance we will start to get at least some of these answers in our lifetime. So I look forward to getting them, definitely. And there's actually a third movie that I watched. This one was a few months ago. I'd watched it before. This was a rewatching. Transcendence, with Johnny Depp. Great movie. Really enjoy that movie. That is actually a significantly better movie, although still not exactly Shakespearean in its execution. But it poses some interesting questions. You see, the thing is, if we could copy minds, then we would relatively quickly be able to prevent people from dying prematurely, from accidents, from age, from illness. It would solve the problem with not really being able to cross vast expanses of space because people just don't live long enough. And if you're going to build an entire ship that everybody lives on that goes off to the next star, what's the point of going to the next star? Just live on the ship. You've already done that. If you've got 10,000 generations on the ship, then let's be honest, your society exists on that ship. Whereas if you can copy a mind, then you can by default pause it, go into stasis if you like, and send it off wherever you want to go. I mean, there's all sorts of possibilities that will come from that. You can also tailor your physical form to your environment better, which makes living on other planets that aren't as suitable as Earth for human life much easier. You can solve the overpopulation problem. Not everybody needs to have a body all the time, potentially. There's so much advancement hidden behind this that we can't even really grasp the fundamental nature of, because it's a bit like me sitting here saying, won't it be wonderful if we could fly? We'll all be able to just float round to our neighbours. Well, that's not quite how it works. We can fly now as a species, and it has been pivotal and changed the way that we operate. But before it was possible, it was quite difficult to really, get to grips with what the impact of that would mean on a similar scale actually to flight, because this is more of this is more transformational. The transhumanism thing is definitely very transformational for the species, a bit like the leap from one kind of Homo sapiens to another. It's Neanderthals to modern humans, at least, if not a bigger leap than that. Whereas flight is a bit more like what we're currently going through with narrow AI, where it is going to change things an awful lot, and it is very difficult to see exactly where that is going. And that one we're definitely going to find out, in probably only a few years. And it's very interesting. It's and amazing, and also a little bit scary. But then all these things are a little bit scary because the unknown is by default a little bit scary. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's basically what I thought I would talk about today, just because I've been watching these movies and they sort of stuck in the mind, and for the most part I thought there were some very interesting points that they brought up. I would encourage people to watch them. Just don't blame me if you think the quality of the acting leaves something to be desired. But they're interesting topics that they cover nonetheless. And then of course you have a different kind of future that you could have, more of a sort of Dune-esque future, where humanity decides, nope, we don't want to go down that artificial brain route. We're going to just outlaw all things artificial, thinking, all thinking machines, just no. And I think that's probably a bit more fanciful. I think that's not the way it's going to go, but we'll see. I certainly don't think that we're going to build a great big AI that's just going to replace us. I think that would be, firstly, the height of stupidity, and secondly, I just don't think that's going to happen. I think what we're going to do is we're going to turn ourselves into that AI, because that's what we're going to want to do. I mean, wouldn't you? I don't want to live in thrall to some giant artificial god that just dictates everything. I'm sure, vast majority of people wouldn't. But I wouldn't mind being able to study the universe firsthand from out there. I wouldn't mind not having to worry about, health problems and getting old, and, be able to work towards a society that can, doesn't really have, wants and wastage and, all the negative things that go on. I'd like to be able to get those all sorted, mostly, and I think this is the gateway to a lot of that. Anyway, I've waffled on long enough. Interesting subject though. I'll be interested to read the comment section on this one. I hope you've all enjoyed today's vlog post. If you have, remember to leave a like and share it, and subscribe if you haven't already. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter if you like. Links in the description. I want to say a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome, and I'll see you all in the next episode of my vlog. Bye.